Sean's Vision Studios. Hey guys, this is Sean with Sean's Vision Studios, also with Sean's podcast. I am here with two special guests today. One is Jason from the Communications Club.
Hi, everybody.
And the other one is Alicia.
Alicia, yeah.
Alicia. Sorry.
Hello, everyone.
My first question to you, Alicia. Where is your family from?
My family, well, my mother's side of the family is primarily from right here, Fall River, Massachusetts. I am a Picasso Wampanoag.
So, how long has your ancestors been here?
Technically, since before the colonization of the United States of America. I am a 13th generation Perry descendant, but my family has lived here just on the other side of the North Watuppa Pond on Watuppa Reservation. So we were part of one of the Wampanoag families that actually fought with Benjamin Church against other Wampanoags. It's a little bit of a cringy history, but we were friends of the colonizers, and therefore they granted us our own land, or let us keep our land, so to speak, as a token of appreciation for fighting with the English. But we've been around long before the this Santa Maria, the Nina, the Maria, all the ships came.
My next question. Everybody wants to know if there really was a Thanksgiving. Is that true that there was a Thanksgiving, or was that false that there was no Thanksgiving?
So for us, the meaning of Thanksgiving is part of our fall harvest. So there was technically an actual date that transpired where the settlers or the pilgrims sat down with the Wampanoags and had what we now know as Thanksgiving. But essentially for us, that's just a day within the year that we harvest all of our fall crops and get together, and we give thanks every day. It's part of our traditions and culture, so it's not specific to just one holiday per year. Every day for us is Thanksgiving, essentially, but that is a day that the colonizers listed as a holiday and deemed it as what we now know as Thanksgiving.
Next question.
Yeah.
Ready for it?
I hope so.
I hope so too. Have you ever left Massachusetts at all and then come back to Massachusetts for like long periods of time? I'm not just talking about going on vacation. I'm actually talking about living in another state and then coming back to Massachusetts.
So my family, like I said, we've been on the reservation for a very, very long time. I did not grow up in Fall River. I actually grew up in Rhode Island. My grandmother, who was born in the city of New Bedford, her mother was born on the reservation. But during that time, there really wasn't a lot of industry, so she married and relocated to New Bedford, where my grandmother was born. And then my grandmother married another man who was actually from the Virginias, and he was mixed with Blackfoot, Scottish, and African American. And they actually moved up this way building the railroads. So they settled in East Providence, Rhode Island. So I grew up in East Providence, Rhode Island. That's where my mother was born and raised. Well, she was born in Providence, but raised in East Providence. And I moved to the reservation full time in the early 2000s. It's when my mother was gifted the opportunity to become the steward of the reservation with my Aunt Barbara and my Aunt Karen. And so she was there in the early 2000s. And then I very briefly after that decided that I was a grown woman and wanted to live my own life. So I moved to Virginia to live with my father, and then moved to California to get married, and was back and forth between different places through that, like the early 2000s to the 2010s, and then came back this way. And then again in 2013, I moved to Miami, Florida, where I was there for 5 years until my mother crossed over. And in 2018, upon her passing, it was my turn to take over the reservation and our family homestead. So that's when I moved back here to Fall River.
That just answered all my questions I just had for you.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah, life brings you full circle. So, yeah, I've come and gone. When I was married in the early 2000s, it was a very volatile relationship. I was young, he was young, but there was some domestic abuse that took place. And so it left me physically wounded, emotionally wounded, spiritually wounded. And when I came home to Watuppa, that land saved me. It brought me back to life. It connected me to the greatest version of myself. I would just commune there with the Great Spirit and my ancestors, and just really connected and found my power and found my strength there on those lands. My great-great-great-grandfather was Dr. William Pequot Pelawanka Perry, who was well known throughout New England as a medicine man. And he actually not as a medicine man, he was a medicine man, but he was referred to from the colonizers as doctor. He never went to medical school, but he saved so many of the English children that they referred to him as doctor. He was telepathic. He could heal you. He could go out into the woods and talk to the ancestors and spirits and decide what plants and medicines to heal you with. If he couldn't get to you physically, he would go into a trance and heal you telepathically. He's written about in some books that we have here in our family's library. And yeah, he was a phenomenal man. So for me coming home there, that was probably like 2003. I was very broken emotionally and spiritually. And, just going out and laying on the land and communicating with the spirits and the animals, it truly awoke in my spirit and helped me to discover my true power. And I owe everything that I am to Watuppa Reservation, which is why, while my mother was living for every conversation, especially when I was living in Florida, Alicia, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to be the steward? Are you sure you're going to come back? Yes, Mom, I promise. When the time is right, I will return and become the steward. However, in my mind, I thought that I would be much older in life, that my mother would be much older in life. I didn't anticipate that it would be something that would happen at the age of 38. And so when she passed unexpectedly, I knew that my time had come and it was time for me to return home. And it's been my greatest gift and honor to be living back in the homestead and protecting our reservation.
Now, you said the word stewardess.
Yes.
That doesn't mean the ones that's in the planes.
No, not a stewardess. A steward is basically somebody that oversees or protects lands. We try to honor the land in its natural ways, not to destroy or cause destruction to it as far as putting up new houses or new structures. We just want to keep it pristine. If you remember, we took the trip that time on the field trip with Professor Newton, and we were on the other side of the pond, but it's very pristine there. That land has pretty much never been decimated. There's never been major construction, and so for us, just keeping it that way for the animals and the wildlife, and the plant life to just grow as they do. For me, that's what being a stewardess is. And then also, in addition to the land, the homestead. The home is built in the mid 1800s, so it's a fairly old house. We've over the years put in, done upkeep to it and modernized it. There's still the original outhouse on the property that nobody uses, but it is still there. It's got 3 areas for you to take a family outing to the bathroom if that's something that you would do. But back in the day, that's what my ancestors would do. Wired with electricity at one point, so at least they didn't have to go in the dark. I can't imagine, 23 degrees, December, having to put my boots on because I have to go to the bathroom, but that's what they did back in the day. But we have a full bathroom, a full kitchen, heat, running water, all of the amenities that any other house would have, but because it was so old originally, it didn't have those things.
Now, you mentioned on that trail that we went to take a field trip with Miss Newton. You said that there was one of your relatives that would walk from the other side, from where we were, would have to go another 180 on the other side of the pond, where you saw a lady.
Yes.
Where that you didn't know. I don't know if he was trying to say that was a ghost or if that was some type of spirit, but you said that was a common thing that you would see.
So no, what I meant by that, so that trail, I think it's the Tapatium Trail, that is where Weedamo, who was our female sachem, a sachem is a chief. So during the time, the colonization, we're talking pre the King Philip's War and after Massasoit and Benjamin Church, and other English people were working together. She was, I believe she was married to Massasoit's brother at one point, but she was a sachem on her own, and she was a sachem of the Cossacks or the Watuppa Indians. And she would go and walk those trails. There's a rock up there that she would like to go and look out at and just communicate with nature and be left alone. It was kind of like her little hideout. But yeah, she essentially during the King Philip's War was found in the Taunton River, and they beheaded her and left her on display for many years, I believe. But she was a beautiful and powerful woman, and I'm not a direct descendant of her, but I am a descendant of her as well.
How old were you when you learned all about this?
That's a great question. Being an indigenous or a Native American person in America is not something that 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago was something that you publicly talked about. Being Native, especially in this part of the world where Plymouth Rock, right, that's right here. So the colonizers left England and came here. They also went down to Virginia and Jamestown settlement. But so for me, I have the privilege of being able to communicate and speak about my heritage and truly understand my lineage and where I come from. I owe a lot of that to the research of my mother and her generation. But she grew up in a generation where you didn't talk about being Native. She wasn't allowed to say, I'm Pakasset Wampanoag. She was taught to say, my Nana would tell her, let people think you are whatever you are, because she was kind of ambiguous as far as her ethnicity. Could she be Italian? Could she be Portuguese? Could she be white? Could she be Native? She could have been a lot of things, but it wasn't something that she publicly talked about. Now, we've finally come to realization the significance of Indigenous people, and that we've always been here, that this is in fact truly our land. And so now in 2025, it's definitely much more acceptable to speak that way. But for her and for my grandmother and for the generations before, it was something that you kept only your family knew. It wasn't something that you talked about. But luckily for her, and like I said, that like my aunts and uncles that of her generation that did the work, that hired the genealogists, that did the research on their own to discover who we are, where we come from. I'm able to be here right now to talk to you and share who I am.
How old were you? Like what age? What age gap?
I mean, I knew as a little kid that I had Indigenous ancestry. I didn't know the depths of it. I found out, I'd say truly, in like the late 90s. So I'm 45. So I probably started to understand the magnitude of where I came from and who I was, like almost as an adult, like 18, 19, somewhere in there.
So you want to talk about your family heritage. So who made the book exactly?
The book about my great-great-grandfather.
Yes.
So that's a book. I should have brought it with me, but it's written by, I want to say the last name is Simmons, but it's called New England Indians, History and Folklore, and it talks about different important historical figures. And I can't remember the author's first name, but the last name is Simmons, Simmons, and my great-great-great-grandfather is written in that book. And there's been a few others. And apparently he has still quite a following. I ran into a gentleman, the Fall River Modern Art Museum here, Fall River Mocha, who has a Facebook page that's dedicated to Dr. Perry. A lot of people that are interested in his work and his abilities.
But my next question is there any traits that your ancestors had taught you that you still bring up today, from like back into, I want to say early to 1600s, that they have passed on from generation to generation? Like, for example, when we went on that field trip, you said, oh, my grandmother taught me how to make tea. I wasn't sure if she learned that from back in the generations to come.
I think with any culture, there are things that are passed down generationally. For us, like I said, being Native wasn't something that we advocated or expressed to the outside world. Internally, I think it's just in the innate ways in which I was brought up, learning to respect nature, learning to respect the animals, learning to give thanks, learning to sit in silence in nature and communicate and feel the powers of all life. I think that one thing that separates Indigenous people from non-Indigenous people is this innate constraint that something belongs to you. In Indigenous culture, we understand that nothing belongs to us and that we are all part of the earth and that we're all one and the same. And so I think that's been something that, subconsciously my mother was always teaching me those things. And then so now as an adult, to come full circle and understanding, about traditions and ceremonies and how they all honor that mindset of, taking only what you need, giving thanks before you take, giving thanks after. If you're harvesting a crop, or if you're hunting, you're not just going out with your gun and just shooting. You're saying a prayer for that animal. You're giving thanks to that animal. Symbiosis and respect and understanding that we are all one and the same. And I think that is an indigenous mindset that I think other indigenous people would agree with that we have. It's something that we understand that we're not different from each other. We may look different, we may have different beliefs, but when it comes down to it, we are all beings of the earth, and there's enough for all of us to have.
During Thanksgiving, back in 2018, maybe 2019, maybe before that, maybe like 2017. Not sure if you knew about the Thanksgiving parade where there was a bunch of Indians who said that is just a bunch of lies, that the pilgrims have never sat down and ate with the pilgrims. Now, you said before that actually happened. How did you catch any wind of that? And if you did, how did that make you feel?
I think I know the instance that you're talking about there. So none of us were around, in I believe the first Thanksgiving supposedly happened in the like 1670s, somewhere in there. None of us were around in that time, so we don't really know exactly what happened. There have been historical documents that have been preserved, but even in those, it doesn't mean that it's factual. We're all entitled to our beliefs. I do believe that there was a time where the Wampanoags sat down with the Pilgrims and shared their resources with them, which is how we got to this point. Whether or not it's 100% truthful, I don't know. I do believe that if it weren't for the Wampanoags helping the Pilgrims that first winter, they would have not survived. And so the story of them giving and sharing their bounty, quote unquote, breaking bread with them, that enough for me is enough to believe that it's true, because I know my people and I know where our hearts are, and that it's definitely something we would have done. Should we have done it? I don't know, because look at the state of the country now. Because we let these settlers in, who knows? There were millions of people that we lost, not just here in Massachusetts, but throughout the entire North America. Indigenous people go from Canada to South America, and there are tribes of people all over that were wiped out, for land, sold into slavery, pulled apart from their families. So for me to say that the Wampanoags were part of helping another people to survive, that's a story that I will continue to believe, because I think it shows the beauty of my people.
My next question is, are you still angry at those Indians who disbelieve of what you just said?
I don't know these people personally, and no, I'm not angry. I think if that's their beliefs, then they're entitled to that. They may be descendants of Wampanoags that were at that first Thanksgiving. They may have firsthand knowledge, something that I don't have. But if I understand their need for anger, to have your whole life ripped away from you, your land, your heritage, your language, your family, that would make you angry. So whether or not they're speaking truthfully, I understand where that pain or that anger resonates from. And so, no, I'm not mad at them. I get it.
Back to the traits question, I meant by skills, like, can you take any skills that was back from your ancestors that you still take to you, like today, for example, like when you make the tea, when you, the old school buttering, you know what I'm talking about?
Like churning.
Pumping and everything. Like stuff like when you used to farm, stuff like that. Has that ever been transferred to you from then to now?
It's not something that I was directly taught. Like I said, my mother grew up in a time where she didn't talk about being Indigenous. As she got older in life, she was able to do that research, find her roots, kind of basically go back home, and spend the last part of her life dedicated to her ancestry and dedicated to being a Picasso Wampanoag woman. But innately, like cooking is something that was passed down generationally, and just some of the dishes, the succotash and just other dishes like my mom, that we would, chicken and fish, seafood, like, potlucks, or clam boils, things like those nature. Those are things that have Indigenous roots, and those things were passed down to us. I'm lucky enough now in a time where information is readily available to us, right? We can Google anything, and find out how to do something. So I am learning how to do a lot of the things on my own, because I don't have those resources firsthand personally. I know people who are very much involved in living in an Indigenous lifestyle, 365, as far as, hunting, gathering, their we-tos, creating tools and things of that nature. I'm not there yet, but there are many indigenous people here, they're members of the Narragansett tribe, other members of different bands of the Wampanoag. There's many of people who are truly living in that indigenous lifestyle, I would say, way more than I am. For me, I think because I grew up in the modern world, that's what I know. But yeah, I'm excited to learn more about my ancestral roots and give honor to that as I grow.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're on that field trip that we took out in the woods out near Fall River, you said that someone taught you tea, and that was a relative of yours.
Right.
Was that tea making passed down to generation, and I believe you said that was your grandmother, correct?
Right. So, I mean, did her mother teach her? I don't know. I would assume so. But my great-grandmother died long before I was even born, and my Nana died when I was 7. So, I got a few things from her, but not everything. Most of anything I've learned either on my own or through my mother. But yeah, and a lot of it I've discovered is actually passed down ancestrally. And what I mean by that is that I get guidance from my ancestors through spirit on what to do and how to do it. When you can communicate with nature and you can communicate with spirit, there's a lot of lessons that I may not be taught in a textbook or even, like I said, going online, but a lot of it comes through channeling my ancestors and asking them for the guidance and them showing me the way.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Question is how long does it take you to make a tea?
So the sassafras tea or sassafras fruit tea that I made, that took a few hours to make the tea, but I also had to go out and forage for the sassafras roots themselves, and that took a couple of days. So typically, like right now I'm about to make an elixir. It's not so much, it's not very time consuming, but it does take time. But the main ingredient is always love. So you have to make sure that you have that. But yeah, the sassafras tea took a few hours, about an hour for the roots to boil, and then you have to let it sit, and then I added the honey. But it was the foraging that took the most part.
So me drinking, and your expertise, me drinking regular tea with no sugar, nothing added, and it's green tea, by the way, because I'll either have the lemon flavor, or I'll have the green flavored. But which one is actually more healthier, yours or the other two that I mentioned?
It depends. Are you getting green tea? Are they bags? Is it something a can that you're buying?
They're bags.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that they're both probably about the same. If it's a tea bag, again, I don't know if that one is manufactured, if it's got preservatives, if it's got food coloring, if it's got added, any additives in it. For me, what I made strictly came from the earth with water, and that was it. So I don't know which one. I would have to say probably the 100% natural one would be the healthiest. But without knowing specifically what type of tea it was that you had and what it was made from, I wouldn't be able to really say.
Which is your tea?
Let's go with my tea.
Is there anything else that you also cook besides those dishes? Because, man, you're making me hungry.
I mean, I love to cook. I think food is definitely, and cooking is definitely one of my love languages. It's something that I watched my mother and my Nana do. My Nana was a cook at Rhode Island School of Design for many, many years. So I love the fact that her food went into the bodies of, some of the artists that graduated from that school. Rhode Island School of Design is one of the greatest art schools in the nation, and so for her to feed those bellies and give inspiration to those students, that's something that I'm proud of. But she was an amazing chef, and she never went to culinary school, but it was just something she was born with, and I believe that she learned from her mother, and I definitely learned it from my mother. I love to cook everything, and I think, like I said, it's one of my love languages. I love to cook. Fried chicken is one of my favorite things. I've modified the recipe from my mother's because I now put it in the air fryer so it doesn't have as much grease. But rice, vegetables, different. I mean, I basically cook everything. I have a gamut. I can cook Italian food. I can cook Greek food. I can cook Asian food. just love to eat.
What's your favorite dish to cook?
Of all time? Oh,
Of all cultures, what's your favorite one?
of all cultures. Oof. That depends on the day of the week and how hungry I am.
That's a good answer.
Right? I grew up calling them phyllo doughs, but they're basically like spanakopita. But my mom, we have a recipe where we take the spinach and the feta cheese and the sausage. My partner she's Jewish, so she doesn't eat pork. So I've modified it with chicken sausage and just some seasonings, and you kind of wrap it up in the phyllo dough, and you fry it very quickly, and it's delicious. That's one of my favorite dishes that I remember I grew up eating. But I guess of all time, my favorite dish would have to be snail salad, which I believe, is probably very unconventional. I know here in New England you can find it, in the seafood department most times. But it's deep water sea snails that are thinly sliced, and oil and onions and peppers and seasonings. And
Is that your favorite dish to cook because that's easiest?
it's actually not easy to cook. It's my favorite to cook because there's no cooking involved. It's just a lot of mixing and slicing because the snails are already cooked when you buy them. But I think it's just the most tastiest, and it's probably the most meaningful because it's one of my mom's favorite dishes that she liked to cook. So I feel most connected to her when I'm making that.
You got any other questions?
Yes.
Jason?
So.
Get closer, Jason.
Yeah.
Well, your head's got to get... There you go. Get closer. There you go. Thank you.
So, you know how you've been talking about your family relatives?
Mm-hmm.
So, how long were you when you had your grandmother around?
How old was I when my grandmother was around?
Yes.
So my grandmother was born in 1910 and passed a week after her 76th birthday. So she passed in 1986. So I was 6, almost 7 when she passed. I think I'm saying that right. But she was the matriarch of our family. She had 4 children, one being my mother, my aunt, and two sons who are my uncles. And she raised all of us, and we would be at her house, every day after school. And she would cook dinner and breakfast. And she was a short little thing. Her name was Kathleen. She was about 4'11" when she passed. But she was a spitfire. Funny. You'd never see her without a cigarette in her hand. This is the 80s, so smoking was big then. But yeah, I lost her in the physical sense in 1986. But I've always felt a strong connection to her. Losing my mother in 2018 was a reaffirmation for me that when we lose somebody in the physical, it's just that. We just lose their bodies, but their spirits continue on. I feel my mother's energy with me all the time. There's times she'll let me know. There's signs if you pay attention to them. She communicates with me through song. But there's also been times where I've literally felt her right next to me, like she was still here. So her crossing over just reaffirmed that, like, I've always felt my Nana with me. So I don't know. But I guess I lost her at 6, but I feel like she's always with me, so I've never really technically lost her.
So, which song she sang to you?
So when she crossed over, it was July of 2018, and I was living in Miami, Florida, and I actually had one of my childhood best friends come to town, and I was on my way to go meet her at the club, and I was home getting ready, and earlier in the day, I had gotten a phone call from a 508 number, and my thought was, well, what if that's Mom trying to call you? And then I tried to call her, and she didn't answer, and then I called her cell phone, and she didn't answer, and then I called my sister, and she's like, oh, no, she's fine, she's home. I talked to her earlier. Okay, so now fast forward, I'm getting ready to go to your club, and there's just weird things happening in my car. Like, the music I had CarPlay in my car, and, like, it would not play. I don't know what was going on, but it wouldn't play. Now, as I'm pulling into the parking lot, this song comes on, and it's by a native artist called Periwinkle. The name of the song is The Traditional 49er, and the song is about the Wampanoag powwow in Mashpee. I had never, in my entire 38 years on this planet, ever heard this song ever in my life. And I heard it, and I immediately knew that it was my mom. I did not know that my mom had crossed over. So as I'm parking, I'm now crying, and I'm telling my mom that I love her. There's a huge full moon, and I'm just like, I love you, Mommy. I love you. But, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, get it together. You're going into their club. Come back to reality. So I let the song finish playing. And again, I'd never heard the song. And prior to that, it was probably about a 20-minute drive from where I lived to this place. So 15 and a half minutes of that was silence. And as I'm pulling in, this song just starts playing.
Where in California?
This was Miami, Florida.
I'm sorry.
And I mean, if I'm being technical, I was going to Tootsie's. Shout out to Tootsie's. Cabaret, it's one of the best strip clubs in the nation. So that's where I was headed to meet my friend from here who was on vacation down there. Leave there at about 4 or 5 in the morning, and now I'm driving, and the moon is with me. And I'm just, you know, feeling my mom's energy and not realizing that she was here in Massachusetts and had crossed over. So I got that phone call later on. So now it's technically Friday morning, and I'm at work now Friday evening, and I get the phone call that she's crossed. But I know that my mother played that song for me because I had never heard it before, and it talks about my tribe. And in the lyrics, it said, I will see you again at the Wampanoag powwow. And so for me, it was my mom's way of saying that she would see me again on the other side.
Have you ever heard that song ever since?
Only when I played it, but it hasn't come on its own. Like, it literally came on its own. And so I've now saved it. You know, we had a playlist for her service, and it was one of the songs that I played. But I didn't even know that the artist exists. I didn't know that the song existed. There nothing until that moment. And so now I know the song, and I'll play it on my own. But it's never played. But she'll do that. There's different songs like Stevie Wonder "As" is a song that you know, a few months after she had crossed over and I was living back here. That she played for me, and it will just be random. Like I do have Spotify, but like I'll have it on like Dochi, you know, and you know it's like extra like, you know, a little ratchet. Next thing you know, it's like some deep, powerful, meaningful, slow song that is not on my playlist. So I'm like, I didn't play that. But yeah, so there's been a lot of songs over the years that she will let me know that she's with me.
I forgot to ask this at the beginning.
Yeah.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's one of the easiest questions. Now,
easy.
Now, you come to BCC for an associate's degree.
Yeah.
Do you have any other degrees in any other colleges, and what colleges do you go to?
No. So I am a late bloomer. I graduated high school probably, I don't know how old you guys are, but a long, long time ago.
I'm not too far from you.
Okay, well, I had my 25th high school reunion last year. I went to college briefly right after high school and found myself not really interested, and then started working and got into the workforce and stayed into the workforce up until this past year. And I was working, for a women's fitness apparel brand. I was running their customer support team. And the universe spoke, and they let me go. And I used that as a sign that I needed to follow my true, my purpose and go to school for something that I truly believed in. And so that's when I applied here to BCC, and I am going to be receiving my first degree, my associate's. I'm a life science major, but I'm getting my degree, Associate Science in Sustainable Agriculture. And my goal with this degree is then to go on to get my bachelor's, and then ultimately to get I want to become a naturopathic practitioner. So basically it's a doctor, but you don't go through fancy medical school.
So you're going after your master's.
Yeah, essentially. But because I have the reservation and this land that I've been gifted with, and because I have such a strong background in healing, it's my goal to bring back the healing plants and the indigenous healing plants of my people and bring back healing in the natural ways. So I'm getting my degree in sustainable agriculture to learn about farming so I can grow and harvest my own medicines.
I have one final question.
Okay.
Now, I've been reading about this thing called cleaning the feet.
Cleaning the feet.
I'll explain.
Yeah, please do.
There's this, when you sleep, you're supposed to put this pad on that tells you how dirty your feet are, and it's getting away your toxins that's inside your body.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that's actually true, or is that just how dirty your feet are?
No, that's actually true. Your feet, well, all of our bodies, we are electrical conduit, right? We have electrical, we are basically one big magnetic field. So you can draw toxins out of your body through your feet. There's a lot of, in Chinese medicine, there's a lot of herbs that you can use, and there's patches you can put on your feet that will draw all the toxins out. I know for me, when my son is sick, I like to put red onion on his feet to draw out the cold. But yeah, you can get, even like acupuncture or acupressure. There's pressure points, on your feet that align with areas in your body, and even in your hands. Like, if you have a headache, you can squeeze like right in this area of your hand hair, and that'll help to relieve or alleviate the headache in some cases. But yeah, our bodies are amazing. I don't want to call it creatures, but we are creatures. You can heal your body. Everything we've ever needed to heal ourselves, comes from the earth. And so
I would just wish that there was a recipe for a broken heart.
Oh, there is.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The recipe.
I'm now kind of curious on what this recipe is.
The recipe for a broken heart is loving yourself enough, and being at peace. Because there's all different types of broken heart. You can have a broken heart from a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You can have a broken heart from a parent dying or a sibling dying or a loved one dying. And it sucks, right? Nobody wants to have their heart broken, but when you love yourself enough and you're at peace enough, it doesn't hurt so bad. And the biggest thing, I guess, also is forgiveness. So if there is 3 ingredients for healing a broken heart, it's loving yourself enough, peace, and forgiveness, because life's too short. If you are walking around with your heart broken, the person that broke your heart, they don't feel it. They're out here living their best life. They're on to the next one, or you're there suffering in this mass of broken pieces of your heart, and you're wasting the energy and the time that you have here on this planet. And, how old are you, Jason?
18.
18. How old are you, Sean?
Minus 8 years from you.
I'm bad at math. 33? 40, 40, oh my God. 37. No? 30. Oh my God.
You're close to 37.
39. 36?
I'll be 39 this month.
Okay, 39. Okay, sorry. I'm glad I'm not a math major right now. But like, we don't know how long we're here on this planet, right? Like, you only get one version. You're only going to be Jason. I don't even know your last name, but you're only going to be this version of yourself one time. Sean, you're going to be this version of yourself one time. Same with me. So to waste your time feeling bad about somebody not loving you, pardon my French, but F them, like, love yourself enough. That person that's there in the world for you, they'll find you when the time is right. But, life's too short.
Jason, you got any questions?
No, but what you said was inspiring, and
thank you.
I bet everybody is going to be listening
I
will
hope
understand that love is strong. If you have a broken heart, you can fix it.
Yep.
Just turn around and make your mind straighter.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, life's too short to be bitter or to be sad, and you take none of it with you when you leave. You don't even take your body. You don't take your money. You don't take your body. You don't take your friends, your clothes, nothing. You just take your spirit. So honing in on connecting with your spirit now while you're in the physical, that's the greatest thing you can do for yourself.
You got anything else to say before we wrap up?
No, just thank you so much for wanting to get to know me a little more, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. This is Sean Richard with Sean's Vision Studios. Thank you for listening. This will be up on YouTube as soon as I can get these 2 videos up and done. This one is also going to be on the Hawks YouTube channel if it gets approved. So thank you guys again. Have a good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.